The second set in a block often has more responsibility to the story than the first set. That you very much, the first set gets to be sort of the world tour. You are moving through, we get this sense of place, where narratively the second set is often much more dense with story moments that I think that's obvious here. And so this is this grand pulling back of the curtains, and we get this sense of what Bolas has been doing with this world.
You kind of know, like the second we showed you a picture of Egypt with Bolas horns, you knew something bad was going to happen. And so we really what happens is Hour of Devastation is us delivering on something that we promised you from day one. You knew horrible things were going to happen, and I'm like, okay, it's time to deliver the horribleness.
The people's expectations for what's going to happen are laid out in a document called the Accounting of the Hours, which is on the flavor text of the Amonkhet card, Throne of the God Pharaoh. When the second sun rests between the horns on the horizon, so begins the hour of revelation, then the hour of glory, the hour of promise, and finally, the hour of eternity. The day is finally here. The promised hours are unfolding, all 4 of them, and the people are overjoyed.
So we came up with the idea of having this cycle of hour cards that would kind of represent, you can almost think of it as like each chapter in the story of Hour of Devastation after Nicol Bolas arrives, returning as the God Pharaoh. And the first one, the white one, is Hour of Revelation, where people learn that, okay, Nicol Bolas is back and maybe we didn't get all the things we were hoping for. He kind of comes back and unleashes destruction on the world. And gameplay-wise, what we were looking for here is we knew Hour of Devastation is a set kind of themed around kind of the disaster movie tropes, right? Where everything is happening very quickly and everything's getting destroyed and buildings are toppling and, everything is a mess. And so we wanted to have a bunch of big splashy sorceries that destroyed a lot of things, and this seemed like a perfect fit for it.
The Gatewatch are among the crowd watching the doors to the afterlife open. They are not concerned about the theology of the situation. They need to find Nicol Bolas and fight him. So they kind of spend the rest of the hours working their way to Nicol Bolas through the increasing chaos. But first they have to fight Razakath, the third of the 4 demons who own Liliana's soul.
This is why Liliana is here. She agreed to come along because, you know what, she's got business to attend to here. Once they confront Razakath for Liliana, once they deal with that, they've done everything they need to do here. But Razakath is also in the service of Bolas. Razakath is the one that, once the sun kind of achieves its place between the Bolas horns, starts the ritual that awakens 3 more gods. These are the destroyer gods. These are the gods that nobody really knew about, but Bolas had hidden away beyond the gates of the afterlife. And when the time was right, these are the ones that kind of clean up after everything is done.
One of the design goals, and I think it's probably clear, was take a lot of the elements that we set up first in Amonkhet and give them a little bit of a twist. And the gods are a really good example of that, where they are not part of this pantheon that was there, and they don't necessarily follow the same rules, and we really wanted to create that disconnect there. So they also are these immensely powerful ancient beings, but they operate a little bit differently mechanically.
Story Spotlight 2, The Hour of Glory. At the Hour of Glory, all will receive a final chance to prove themselves worthy of the afterlife. Most people who have ever lived on Amonkhet have gone through the trials and either made it to the afterlife or not. But some are still alive right now, and as in any apocalyptic belief system, there's a worry about what happens to the people who are alive when it happens. Well, we get a final chance. The scorpion god, this brutal, animalistic scorpion god, comes through the gates and just kills Ronas. Ronas, the god of strength, just kills him. Now the people are really not sure about what's going on. Was this the last chance for the gods to prove themselves? Are they now finding a glorified death in the same way that the people did? Or is something really, really awful going on?
Hour of Glory was a card that we made because we really wanted to give someone a way to deal with the gods from Amonkhet, because they're all indestructible and they can be really frustrating to deal with at times. So this card is just a card that we just wanted you to be able to play in case you just really had this god that you wanted to get rid of forever.
Story Spotlight 3, The Hour of Promise. Now, the city of Noctimun has always, as far as anyone knows, been protected by the Hekma, this magical boundary that keeps out the sand and the zombies. At the Hour of Promise, the Hekma will be lowered because it will no longer be needed. The entire world will be a paradise. It's not quite how it goes. The Hekma is lowered by the Locust God and its swarm of insects, but that just lets the sand and the zombies into the city. The sand and the city are one, but not the way anyone expected.
Hour of Promise is one of my favorite cards from Hour of Devastation. It lets you find any land you want. So if you're playing Standard, you can search for your desert, you can search for your Sanctum of Ugin, or, if you need a color fixing or whatever. But in an older format, like Legacy, you can find your Gaia's Cradle. That's pretty cool.
The thing I really like about the Locust God in particular, the blue-red one, is that you've got the trigger on card draw, then the activated ability to loot, which obviously gives you a card and gives you a 1/1. But what's really nice there is in a blue-red deck, you're going to want to play a lot of spells that draw you a lot of cards anyway. So it just fits really well into the kind of draw spells blue-red has anyway. And the rest of your deck can work really well with this card. It's not just relying on the activated ability.
In the Hour of Eternity, the worthy will finally take their place by the God Pharaoh's side. The Gatewatch had started to suspect, as they explored Amonkhet, that there was a purpose to this place, that in fact it was designed, the whole world was designed to turn out fit, healthy corpses. Now they finally understand why. The Scarab God emerges, raises its staff, and brings up an army of the dead from the necropolis beyond the gates to the afterlife. These are the zombie Eternals. They are the people who died glorified deaths at the hands of Amonkhet's gods, and they are now ready to face their glory. They are coated in this blue stone called Lazatep. They have all of the skills that they had in life, and none of the memories, none of the mercy. This is Nicol Bolas's army.
Hour of Eternity represents the story of Nicol Bolas creating his eternal army, so we knew we wanted to tie it in with the eternalize mechanic in some way. And the idea came to me early on of like, what if you could eternalize any creature? There's a lot of cool things you can do with that. You could get back a smaller creature that has an ability that sort of makes sense and is appropriate for being smaller, but kind of takes on a whole new meaning when that creature is bigger. So, even just imagining like a simple, small double strike creature like Fencing Ace, if you can eternalize that, now it's a 4/4 and it's now dealing 8 damage instead of 2. And that's just kind of scratching the surface of the things you can do with this card.
Scarab God is one of a few designs in Hour of Devastation that uses the kind of, we called it fake eternalize, where you basically get to eternalize the creature of your choice without, actually having the eternalized keyword. This is a really good job of like letting you reanimate your creatures, but make them 4/4s regardless of what they did.
Story Spotlight 5, the Hour of Devastation. Bonus hour. There was no prophecy about this one because it wasn't for the people of Amonkhet. It is special for the Gatewatch or whatever heroes turned up to try to stop Nicol Bolas at the last minute. Now he can be honest. This is not promise. This is not eternity. This is devastation. Bolas faces the Gatewatch. He just tears them apart. One by one, he turns their strengths into weaknesses. He separates them. He defeats them. One by one, they flee the plane. The jackal-headed god Hazaret is the only one of Amonkhet's 5 gods to survive. She leads the few survivors of the city of Noctimun out into the desert, and Bolas is left to rule over a shattered sandy waste with his army of stone-coated zombies. As the Gatewatch flee to wherever they're fleeing to, they know that that can't be his whole plan. Bolas thinks even bigger than just ruling one world, and so they're left to wonder what was all this about? Why? What is he up to?
So here's one of the problems that Nicol Bolas has had, is that he's been around forever. I mean, he goes all the way back to Legends, and he's always been like behind the scenes and always like, that's a horrible Nicol Bolas imitation. But he's always been behind the scenes, plotting and planning. He's a nefarious, puppet master. But we've never actually seen him like be the bad guy, like do the bad stuff. I heard once upon a time he did something, and you know what? We really wanted to see Nicol, we wanted to raise the stakes. Why is he our big baddie? And so we wanted to see him have a definitive win. And we knew coming off of the previous year, we had a year story in which, they learn about the Eldrazi, they defeat the Eldrazi. It's wrapped up in a nice little bow. And, it's early on, the Gatewatch had some wins. Look, the Gatewatch needed a loss. And who should they lose to? Look, Bolas. And so Hour of Devastation is all about Bolas just smashing the Gatewatch.